This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to the Human Animal Connection Show, where we believe we can communicate with all animals. Join us as we explore the 33 principles and healing methods of the human animal connection. As animal lovers, we know that you share our commitment to making the world a kinder place for all creatures. Together, let's embrace the transformative healing power of the human animal connection.
Hi, welcome back to the Human Animal Connection. I'm your host, Michael Overly, and I'm here with Jeannie Joseph, who is going to talk to us about therapy dogs and answer the question, can my dog be a therapy dog? Jeannie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So good to be here. I'm really glad we're doing this show because a lot of people come up to me and they say, oh, this program you do with the kids is amazing. This Canines Teach Compassion, where we bring, dogs into the high school classroom and totally lowers stress and gets people out of their shells. And it's just amazing. So people say, can my dog be a therapy dog? And I have to answer that question so many times. I thought, let's do a presentation and then people can really get an understanding of what it actually takes to be a therapy dog. Because they think, oh, my dog, loves everybody, could be such a great therapy dog, but that's not always true. So this will kind of give you the ins and outs, all the things that you'd like to know about whether or not your dog could be a good therapy dog. So the first question is, does your dog like to connect with people? Does your dog really enjoy meeting people? Is your dog have a kind of expressive and communicative and enjoy interacting? And does the dog like to bring comfort to people? So those are like the 3 C's that we think about. And without those 3 C's, if a dog doesn't have those qualities, they may be a great dog, but they may not be a great therapy dog. So I want to tell you a little bit about Oscar's story. You want to hear Oscar's story, Michael?
I would love to hear Oscar's story.
So Oscar was in the shelter. He'd been there a long time, and this was a high kill shelter. So his days were numbered, and he was a pity mix, and he had scars all over his body. He was missing teeth, and he just had this really sad look, because he'd had a really rough life. He had been forced to be a pig hunter in Hawaii. They hunt the wild pigs, and they starve these dogs and try to make them more aggressive. And so he just had, scars all over his body. And I was working with the military and doing a program called Act Resilient, which uses improv comedy and laughter and all kinds of fun things. And I started bringing in the therapy dogs after a couple of years into the program. And I saw what the dogs could do in minutes. And I said, oh my God, why am I working so hard when these dogs can just open people's hearts? Just like, it's amazing. So Oscar had this amazing ability to read people. So I could be sitting in a room full of soldiers, sitting in a circle, and these were soldiers hospitalized with PTSD, early days of the war. And Oscar would go in and he would say hello to everyone, unless they were afraid. He knew to skip them, but he would know who was really in trouble in that moment. And he would just go sit in front of them and look into their eyes with his big brown sad eyes. And it was irresistible. You can't resist the look of Oscar because he would just gaze at you softly until you melted. He just had this ability to see your essence, and he didn't care what you had done or what you hadn't done. He didn't care what you looked like. He didn't care if you were missing limbs. He just saw your essence. And that is such an extraordinary experience, to really be seen by another being. It's an amazing experience. And so Oscar just had this tremendous ability, and he he changed my life because he basically, it made me say, well, this is good work. This is important. This is really valuable. This changes people's lives, and there's no side effects, and it's relatively inexpensive. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about our high school program. This is a program we have called Canines Teach Compassion. Have I ever told you about that?
No, I love it though. Tell me about it.
So it's really neat. We bring these trained therapy dogs in, but we also, this school allows us to bring dogs that are still in training. They haven't been tested yet. They haven't been certified yet. They have potential, but they're not quite ready. And we teach the kids to teach the dogs how to learn the skills that they need to become therapy dogs. And this is incredibly valuable for the kids because they learn that every dog learns a little differently. Every dog is motivated differently. Some are totally treat motivated. I'll do anything for a treat. Others are, I'll do anything for your love. Others, I'll do anything for my favorite toy. Like in the military, dogs are very motivated. They get to play with their Kong after they just saved like 1,000 lives after discovering a bomb. They just want to play with their toy, you know? So understanding that every dog has a different learning strategy, a different learning style, helps the kids understand that they themselves learn differently, and to recognize what motivates them, what makes them want to do well. And so that's really a useful thing that we do. The other thing we do is we will line up like 5 different dogs, like my little Sophia, who's, 27 pounds, and 130-pound bull mastiff, and black and white, and, all different sizes and shapes. And we'll say, what do we notice that's different about these dogs? And they can all see the differences immediately. I said, well, what's the same? Finally, it's like, well, they're all dogs. And it's the same with people. We all have all these differences that we can see, and yet we're all the same if you look at our fundamental nature. So there's so many lessons that they learn from working with the dogs. And we find we get over 50% reduction in stress in just from interacting with these dogs. So this is a little chart here that shows our stress levels before they walk in the room, just as they walk in the room, and then after they interact with the dogs and with our program, how are they feeling? And that's 50 to 60% drop in stress in just 1 hour. And that's the whole group. So, individuals will vary, but in looking at the group, that's what gives us that 50%. So that's really exciting for us. We also teach them how to recognize the stress in dogs, and then how to understand that in themselves. So are you wondering if only certain breeds could be therapy dogs?
I doubt it, right?
Yeah. Well, there are some dogs that are very typical. We see a lot of Labradors and Golden Retrievers and Poodles and Labradoodles, but I'm going to tell you that any dog potentially, any breed could potentially be a therapy dog. I've seen teacup poodles. I've seen Bichons, I've seen bull mastiffs. I've seen pit bulls. That it's about the individual, not about the breed, is the point I guess we would make, is that to think in terms of the unique individual. And then people will ask me, here's Frodo, the big guy in the front, and Gertie is his housemate, and Sophia working with me. We're evaluating. Gertie has tremendous potential. She was a feral dog in Mexico, a street dog, really, scrounging. So you can't take any food away from her, but she's such a sweetheart, and she has tremendous potential. So sometimes big dogs are really good, because some people are afraid of small dogs, believe it or not, and some people are afraid of big dogs. So having when we try to have as much variation as possible when we work with the kids, because it really helps them understand that, like, sometimes the big kids really feel good about being with a big dog, and sometimes smaller kids want to be with a small dog, or vice versa. It can change, but just having that those differences helps them appreciate that all dogs are good dogs. There's no like good breed or bad breed. They're all potentially good. So this is, again, picture of Oscar, my sweet little Oscar. And I want to make the point, because he was a shelter dog. He had escaped from his terrible situation. And shelter dogs, what I've found, often make the best therapy dogs. I don't want to say as an absolute rule, because I've met some great therapy dogs who weren't shelter dogs, but for the most part, I'd say 80% of the best dogs are shelter dogs that have had traumatic pasts. And this is really important when we're working with the veterans, to help them understand that trauma is no fun to experience, but it also uniquely makes you capable of helping others, because you do understand pain, you do understand fear, you do understand, being tortured. So I've found that shelter dogs are really very, very often make great therapy dogs. And of course, that doesn't mean that every dog that comes out of their shelter. I'd say about 20%. That's just my anecdotal, that's not science, but that's my perception, is that about 20% of dogs just really have it in them to be good people readers, and to really want to do this work where this is their life purpose. Like for Oscar, this was his life purpose. And it's really beautiful to see that when you find a dog whose life purpose it is. So let me just say a little bit about the differences. Do you know about this, Michael? Have you seen the differences between therapy dogs and service dogs and companion animals? Yeah. So it's really, some people know it, some people don't know it. So it's really important, I think, that people understand, because if you are looking to get like just access to restaurants, having a therapy dog is not going to help you. Only service dogs have the right to be in all public places, service dogs, but therapy dogs don't have those same privileges. So therapy dogs are owned by an individual or a family, and their job is to provide comfort and connection and cheer people up and bring them joy. So therapy dogs live with one person or one family and go out and visit others. So that's their job in life, is to go out and bring love and smiles to the world. Companion animals or emotional support dogs provide comfort for their person. So if you had someone who's dealing with some, anxiety or depression or anger issues or whatever, and they have a dog that's suitable for that, that dog can really help them manage their emotions. The dog can learn how to, what we call, alert. If the person is getting too stressed, the dog will cuddle with them or put their chin on their knee and, get them to look at them and get them to refocus back on the goodness of the connection with the dog. So that's a very important thing. And those dogs also do not have the same privileges. You can't take your companion dog or elephant or donkey to a restaurant. So service dogs are the only ones who have that particular protection of being able to go to any place that the public is allowed. And service dogs are specifically trained to provide specific services to a specific person. So you could have, hearing dogs or seeing dogs or medical alert dogs or any number of things that dogs can be trained to be of service. Does that make sense? Is that distinction?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I'm fortunate to know people who work with animals in all of these arenas. And they all do amazing work.
Yeah, it's all good. So yeah, just we want to make sure that people understand that, because sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to train my dog to be a therapy dog and then I can take him on an airplane. Well, that isn't the case. So we just need to make sure that people really do get that. So if you know our work in the Human Animal Connection, you know that we believe that all dogs are good dogs. There's no such thing as a bad dog, although there is bad behavior. So we do have a right as the cohabiter in the house to have some rules and boundaries about what we like. But it's really important to understand that all behavior is an attempt to feel safe and connected. So when dogs are doing behavior, we need to understand what is it that they need that they're not getting. And that changes the whole dynamic. Instead of thinking of good dog, bad dog, we just start thinking about behavior as being either good behavior or bad behavior, but it's really still a good dog. So having said that, not all dogs are ideal for therapy work. Any idea, Michael, why a dog might not be a good therapy dog? Can you think of a reason?
Well, yeah, we can use my Indigo. She is the sweetest, most loving, beautiful dog at home. Once we leave the confines and safe area of the house, she's reactive, she's fearful, and she's a Belgian Shepherd, so she scares people,
Right.
So I would not put her in a situation where there's a bunch of people wanting to touch her.
Exactly. And that's why it's so good to understand. So that doesn't mean she's a bad dog, but it means that therapy dog work is not her purpose. It may not be. It may not be her purpose.
And that's okay, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's an important point. Just because your dog is great with you doesn't mean they're going to be great with other people or everybody else. So pay attention to how your dog's responding in situations. That'll should tell you right away.
Exactly right. So sometimes people have the hope that their dog could be a great therapy dog because the dog loves them so much and brings them so much joy and love. And that's wonderful. But that doesn't mean not all dogs are going to enjoy meeting strangers or being in strange places or having new situations or having too much attention and a lot of energy all at once. Like when we're working with the high school kids, sometimes we've got a big group and it's a lot of energy. So those are things that we have to pay attention to. So I want to tell the story about Ricochet. This is Ricochet, who's on the back of a surfboard here with a boy who's paralyzed, had never been in the ocean before, never ridden a surfboard before. Ricochet would do these tandem surfing experiences, which would take away all the fear for the kids. And Ricochet did it for adults too. She was just an extraordinary surfing service dog. And what's so interesting about her story is she was born and bred for service work. So she had a long history of the right genes, and she was trained by an absolute professional. And she was known as a puppy prodigy. So at the age of, I think it was 4 months or 6 months, she could do all of her tricks. She could open doors, turn on lights. She could retrieve things that had fallen. She could close the washing machine. I mean, just everything, like everything. But when she hit adolescence, she quit. she didn't want to do it anymore. She didn't want to do any of the commands that she knew. She started chasing birds. And so she was going to be disqualified, what they call recareered in service dog work. Her trainer was going to give her away after bragging what a great puppy prodigy Ricochet had been, doing everything perfectly. But fortunately, she was wise, and she noticed that Ricochet loved to stand on the surfboard and the kiddie pool in her backyard pool. And she realized that this was something that Ricochet really enjoyed. And she didn't enjoy the surface work training. She didn't want to be that kind of, service dogs are 24/7 on duty. They work hard, but Ricochet wanted to be on a surfboard. And so she recognized this, and she understood what her true purpose was. And she became this person who could take paralyzed children, and they raised thousands of dollars for physical therapy. And, so the moral of the story is that every dog has their own purpose, and it may not be what we want, and it may not be what we think. And so to just recognize that there are, different dogs have different purposes, and doesn't make one dog better than another. It just means that their purpose is different, just like in human life. Not everybody wants to be a doctor, Therapy work, and this is again a picture from our high school classroom, and this is actually a seeing eye dog. So for her, it's really fun to take off her vest and just be a therapy dog, which is like downshifting from her responsibilities, and she just loves it. So here she is getting a wonderful belly rub from a really shy girl who just fell in love with this one dog. And we're getting ready to do some hoop training. That's why we're holding a hoop. But therapy dog work is so rewarding for the people who get to interact with the dog, but it's also very rewarding for the dogs themselves. So we find that this feel-good hormone called oxytocin, which is what women have when they're breastfeeding, but men and women have it. But when you fall in love, that's oxytocin. So it's the kindness and compassion hormone, brain hormone, and dogs just bring that out in us, and they bring it out in each other. So a good therapy dog gets energy from being in a therapy environment, but as you'll see later, there's a limit to that. So it isn't infinite. So I just want to talk about the two types of visits. One is called AAA, for animal assisted activity. And in that case, we don't have a predetermined goal. We're just kind of in the moment. We just want to see what happens. Like I brought Sophia to the hospital today to visit, with my mother. And, some of the doctors and nurses they just had to get down on their hands and knees and say hi to Sophia, and other ones would just smile and walk by. That's fine. It's just, I have no plan. I'm just going to see what happens. And that's the beauty of AAA, is that it doesn't have an agenda or a goal, and there are no treatment notes. We're just sort of in the moment with whatever happens. On the other hand, we have animal assisted activity, or AAT. And in that case, we have a therapeutic plan, and we have goals, and we're working with a therapist. So let's say a therapist has issues with, one interesting study was done is that cardiac patients, people who'd had cardiac surgery, and they often don't want to walk, they're hurting, they don't want to get out of bed, but they'll turn down the offer to walk with a human. But if we offer them to walk with a canine, they walk like 80% more with the dog.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Get us walking, right? So that's, there are many advantages of working in that structure of AAT. So here's Sophia visiting with a prisoner, and he said he was in tears. He said, it's been 5 years since I've touched a dog. It just meant so much to him to be with Sophia and just get a little furry love there. It just totally brightened his day. And therapy dog visits can be literally anywhere that they will allow you to go. Like, so we'll go through some of these reading programs, disaster response, after a natural disaster or school shooting, or, different things like that. So airports, stress relief for kids in college taking exams. I mean, it's literally infinite. I mean, wherever there's humans, there's a need for comfort. So here's my mother in assisted living, and Sophia's visiting her, and she's got her prison outfit on because we came from the prison right straight to here. So, and it's not just for the patients, but it's for the staff too. So she goes around and sees who she can get a treat out of. But it just brightens their day. And when they're happier, they're going to have better interactions with patients. And it just creates this little cycle of goodness that just is really, really, it's really beautiful to watch. And here's Sadie, and she is reading my book, or or at least I'm reading to her. So many programs where kids read to the dogs. And what's great about the kids reading to the dogs is the dogs don't judge them, right? They don't correct their pronunciation. So it takes off all the pressure. And so the kids get much more confident. And of course, a good reading dog is trained. They'll look at the book when the child looks at the book, and they look at the child when the child looks at the dog. So they get this nice eye contact thing going. And it's just, I mean, the kids just love reading to them. So this is an example. In Hawaii, we had a veterans courthouse, and we had courthouse dogs, and we also had dogs for children who had been in abusive situations and needed to testify against maybe family members, and it was very difficult. So we'd bring the dogs in with them. The dogs would sit with them, you know, when they had to testify, and they could pet the dog, and it just really helped make everything so much easier for being in that difficult situation. And the bottom dog, that's Athena with Judge Kubo, and this is in Veterans Court. And this was a dog that had been, she's a boxer, she's got this real tough look, you know, and she was going to be euthanized because they thought she was a vicious dog. Fortunately, this one veteran who was a dog trainer adopted her, and he strapped her to his waist for 7 days. Like, they just did everything together, you know, and she just turned around and became the sweetest little, wonderful little dog. So that's Athena with the judge there in Veterans Court.
Yay.
Yeah. So you've probably seen dogs that do disaster response. Have you seen those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they will go, you know, into schools or natural disasters or shootings, and, you know, in situations where words are like not enough, you know, you just can't say, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, it's just words can't cut it sometimes, you know. So just being able to cuddle and hug a being. And of course, in our culture, we don't have as much touching as some other cultures. And so the dogs transcend that. People can just love on them and hug them, and good therapy dogs are very happy to be hugged and adored. So guess what this is an example of?
That's my dog.
Yeah, it's your dog. Yeah. Right. So this dog here is licking this person like crazy. Though it might be a great dog, but it might not be a great therapy dog. And that's what we need to understand, is that some dogs are just not suited for this work. They have too much energy or too much enthusiasm, or they don't have patience, or they're reactive to other dogs. These are some of the things that would make them be not ideal.
Can we stop there and take a quick break?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
All right.
Perfect.
Let's do that. We'll be right back.
Hey friends, if you like what you're hearing and want to learn more, check out Dr. Joseph's book, The Human-Animal Connection, Deepening Relationships with Animals and Ourselves. Or visit the website, thehumananimalconnection.org, to book an online consultation. Thank you for loving animals. Now back to the show.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
So the qualities of a great therapy dog: enjoys interaction with people, allows strangers to pet and interact, at ease around medical equipment, wheelchairs, canes, walkers, motion, listens and focuses on their handler, calm and balanced energy, adaptable and flexible, enjoys touch, patient and gentle, and predictable.
Yep.
My dog does not make that whole list.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's why this list is so useful, because again, people think, oh, my dog is so sweet, loves to love, loves me. Doesn't mean that dog's going to love a stranger. It doesn't mean that dog's going to love kids, or, you know, so this is something that's really important. Is when we say it's predictable, I know what Sophia likes and doesn't like. Like, she doesn't particularly like young kids, you know, with all those fingers and hands and noises and leaning over her and stuff. She's okay, but she doesn't love it. And that's, you know, so she enjoys working with the high school students because that's not that same energy. So I can predict how she's going to react, you know, based upon how people are with her, or, you know, I can also help them understand what to do differently. So this is like a good list to think about, because again, not all dogs are going to have those qualities. So what we call dog ambassadors, these are people, they love to interact with people. They just love to meet new people. It's like, oh, here's a new person. Let me go sniff them. You know, let me go say hi. Let me go see they'll give me a good scratch. And so a good good therapy dog is also a good people reader. Like they know who to ignore. They know, okay, this person doesn't like dogs. I'm not going to even look at them. I'm just going to pass that person by. This person really wants to interact. I'm going to go right up to that person. So it's sort of fun to walk through hospital corridors and, just Sophia knows who are the nurses who are just too busy and they just can't stop and cuddle, and who's going to get down on their hands and knees and just go, oh my God, it's okay. Yeah. So we want to make sure that dogs are neutral with other dogs, that they're okay with other dogs, because in some therapy situations, dogs are going to be working together. Like when you have a natural disaster, other situations, dogs will be working solo. Going to a hospital, I might be the only dog in that, area at that time. So every situation is a little different. And of course, when the dogs need to be well groomed, they have to have a bath before they go to class. So these are some examples. You want to read about calm manners?
Yes. Yeah, I'm working on these myself.
Okay.
So emotionally calm.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't knock over with their tail.
Yep.
Doesn't jump in greeting. We're still working on that one here. And no mouth contact, right? You don't, even if it's just the tiniest thing, people will say, oh, your dog bit me.
Yeah, right. It's just because they felt the tooth, and these things can be go really haywire really quickly. So they need to know how to take a treat from an open hand, so that they get this just soft mouth feeling. So that's important. So yeah, so it's really important that the dog can calibrate their energy. So these are two boys and working with a three-legged dog, Walter, here, and they just love this little sweetheart, an elderly dog, 3 legs, full of love. So if you're going to be working with young children, then you have to have a dog that can tolerate excessive touch, can tolerate 5 or 6 kids at once. I mean, you have some abilities to, say, okay, just one at a time or whatever. You can do some of that. But when they see the dog walk in the room, they just go gaga. And some dogs are going to thrive with that. Other dogs will be horrified by that. So that's a good thing to know. But I don't work with young children, so that's okay. Sophia doesn't have to love everybody, but I need to know who she loves and who she doesn't. So yeah, so the other thing that we emphasize is that we call it the handler. That's the human part. So you're a team. You, the human, and you, the dog, and the dog are a unit, and they have to work really well together. So we need to make sure that the dog and the human are really in sync. So what I'm looking for when I'm testing, evaluating possible teams, or what I do actually evaluate before they can go into class. I don't do the final evaluations because we keep a distance between the training part, which we do, and the testing part, which someone else does who doesn't know the dog, doesn't have a history or anything with them. So we want to make sure that the human and the animal are really in sync. What we mean by that is that the human is really accurately reading their dog's signals. Like the dog might be fine for 47 minutes, and at 48 minutes, they've had enough. And that's something that we need to be able to observe, because we know our dogs so well and we know their behavior so well. Because dogs can get tired, especially if they're working in emotionally charged environments, like a sudden tragedy, can be, when everybody's in deep grief or whatever. That dog should not work more than an hour. And in fact, we limit all of our therapy dog visits to just 1 hour, just to be on the safe side. So it's really important to know when they need a break and to advocate and say, okay, my dog doesn't like being touched on the ears. We have one new German Shepherd puppy, and she's a lover, but touch your ears, it's not fun, it's not good. So we have to be able to say, hey, rub her right here, or this is her favorite spot, and we help the situation go well. So what we do is we call reading your dog, which means you are continually observing and evaluating. You're watching for fatigue, and you're watching to make sure that it suddenly hasn't gotten too much. We had this one greyhound who was just a beautiful spirit, just like an angel in fur. And she would go around and look at you, and people would just melt in front of her. And then she had enough, and she would just take herself outside of the group and go sit behind the chairs, because she was done, but we have to allow them to do that so we can watch those signals and support them. And we'll say to people, go ahead, go leave early. The dog is tired, had enough, interaction. So it can be, it is usually the highlight when the dog comes to the school and they're in the car. They're like, yeah, get me out. I want to put my vest on. I want to go work. So you can tell that they love it, but they can also get a point like when Sophia finishes with her hour of interacting with the kids, she's so happy to get in the car and just have a little treat, no more kids, and then the next week she wants all the kids and then she's had enough. So we really believe that dogs pick up on our energy. And you agree with that, Michael? You've seen that?
Oh, absolutely. As soon as this slide came up, I was like, well, that's us. That's me, right? I pick up other people's energy too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why we need to make sure that they get breaks if they're doing, disaster work or whatever. And breaks is going to be different. You need to know what your dog considers a break. So some dogs, like Sophia, she's just happy to go back into the car, have a treat, have the quiet, and have no more interaction for a little while. Other dogs would want to run. Other dogs would want to play with a toy. Other dogs would want to cuddle with you. That's what we call resetting. So what is it that resets your dog's nervous system? Maybe you've heard, did you hear the story about the blind man who was in 9/11, who was in the World Trade Center and he went down like 140 flights of stairs with his dog? Did you hear about that?
Yeah. It wasn't
Yeah.
just him that the dog took out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. And when the dog got finally home to their home in, I think it was New Jersey, it was like 16 hours later after this day of walking through, getting, he got lost from his friend and everything. All the dog wanted to do was play with a toy in the yard, and that was fine. That was enough for the dog to reset his nervous system. But every dog is different, what they need. And so what you need is like the owner's manual for your dog. So, after they've had, a full emotionally potent day, a tiring day or whatever, what is it that's going to help them reset? And for some, that'll be play. For others, it'll be quiet. It just depends on your dog. So the other thing we say is that it's important to recognize your dog's opinions and their strengths. And this is what I said, Sophia doesn't want to necessarily work with the young kids. She can tolerate it if she meets a kid in the grocery store or whatever. She can be sweet for a little while with that little youngster, but it's not going to be, she wouldn't want an hour of that. So I need to know what age is Sophia going to really respond to. And, some people are fragile, like older people, and you don't want a dog that's going to be jumping or scratching, or you also want to make sure that the dog can work with emotionally upset people, because sometimes depending upon who you're working with, it's working with soldiers and it can get loud and it can get weird and clumsy movement and things. So this is part of the therapy dog test, is that they get tested with a room with, wheelchairs moving and crowd moving and people moving equipment and making weird noises and wearing weird hats and mumbling and groaning and, being as weird as they can, to see how the dog reacts. And so we want to have a dog that's going to have neutralness in the midst of this human insanity. So that's part of the test. So there are some organizations that will register other animals, like Pet Partners will register, llamas or pigs or goats or, birds, different things, and other organizations that will just register dogs. So you need to check, depending on where you live, and see what you can register. So there's I won't show this video now, but I really recommend this YouTube. But it's Peo, the stallion horse, a big, beautiful black horse. I think brown, but had the ability to smell cancer and was just incredibly gentle, could walk through the, was house trained, didn't potty in the hospital, but could walk through the halls of the hospital, choose who to go visit, and just really was transformative for people. Just this gentle big horse. So horses are just, some horses, again, about 20% make this incredible therapy horses. Now, what about cats, you might ask? Were you about to ask that?
I was going to say, yay, another Oscar.
Yeah, another Oscar. So this is a story about Oscar, who was a feral cat, who was not like a cuddly cat. Like Oscar was not like, you don't go up to Oscar, this cat, and pet him. He'd take a treat, but he really wasn't a cuddle monster, except when people were dying. And he had the ability to tell about 3 hours before a person was going to pass that they were going to pass. And he would go and sit and cuddle with them on their bed and stay with them until they passed. And, he would be the sweetest little thing through this process. And it was so reliable. He had over 50 accurate predictions that the staff could call the families and say, I think it's time, because Oscar had gone into their room, because he wouldn't go in any other time. He didn't want to play or interact except to help people transition. So it's amazing that was his purpose. And the doctors were just completely blown away. So this is the book called Making Rounds with Oscar.
I love that.
Yeah. So if you want to know a little bit about training, testing, and certification, there are different organizations that do the testing part. And I highly recommend it if you want to do this work professionally, because then if you pass the test, you get insurance for your visits. So that's a very helpful thing to not have to worry about that. So depending upon where you live, there are different organizations. And if you're just getting started and you don't have a therapy dog test near you, the next best thing you can do is take the Canine Good Citizenship Test, which you want to read those 10 things, Michael, those long list?
Yeah. So number 1, accepting a friendly stranger. Number 2, sitting politely for petting. Number 3, appearance and grooming, inspection and toe handling.
So I just want to jump in on that. So some dogs hate to have their toes touched, or their ears touched, or their tail touched. So they're probably not going to be good canines. This was one of Sophia's stumbling blocks. She did not like her paws touched by strangers. So we had to really work with that to get her used to, somebody touches me, I get a treat. Somebody touches my foot, I get a treat. Somebody touches my foot, I get a treat. So now she can tolerate it.
Number 4, out for a walk, left and right turns, stop, wait, and about turn. Number 5, walking through a crowd, neutral reactions.
Yeah, so that means that they can endure people coming at different paces, heights, sizes, energies, directions, and they don't get bent out of shape.
Love it. Number 6, sit and down. I think a lot of people don't even know the difference between those two. Sit would literally be sitting, and down would be in a laying position, right?
Yeah, like the Sphinx. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Then stay in place on a 20-foot lead.
So that means we give them a stay command. They stay. You're going to back off 20 feet on a lead, and they have to sit, stay, not get out of that sit or down for 20 seconds or so. And then you do a recall, call them back. I'm sorry, go ahead. 7. Yeah.
7, come when called. I don't do this yet, but yeah, come when called. So as you mentioned, a recall, right? So they're in a position, they're in a stay, and they cannot break that until you call them.
Right.
Right. Okay, number 8, neutral reaction to another dog and people talking.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9, neutral reaction to various distractions. Could be any number of things, right?
Yep. Yeah, we'll drop a clipboard on the floor. We'll drop a bowl on the floor. Lots of different things, noises, weird noises, especially if you're going to work in a medical environment. They have to be really neutral about that. They can turn and listen and look at the thing you just dropped, but they can't freak out and hide or bark or go crazy.
Mm. Number 10, I like this one because we're working on this currently. Supervised separation 3 minutes out of sight. So keeping Indigo on bed while I do something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that is part of the Canine Good Citizenship test. That's the only one that's not on the therapy dog test, because we never have a situation where we're not holding that leash in a therapy situation. So, but other than that, this is really good practice for, if you can pass this, you're a long way towards passing the therapy dog test, although the therapy dog test will have more things. So I just want to let people know, if they're in our area, they can contact us and we'll tell them what classes we have coming up, or wherever they live, they can find other trainers. As long as it's positive training, we don't like any fear-based training. So it's only positive, meaning we reward good behavior. And if people want to sign up for our newsletter, it's free, thehumananimalconnection.org, and they will see what's coming up next. And then a lot of this information is in my book, The Human Animal Connection. So it's been really great to take the time to really talk about all these details so people can make a good decision, because it's a big decision if you're going to do training. It's a 6 to 8 week class of training, and many dogs need more than one round of training, and many dogs don't pass the test the first time. So it's an investment in you and your dog's future, but it is the most rewarding thing in the world to have people love your dog and to have your dog love them. It just brings more joy into the world, makes the world a better place.
Oh, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, who wouldn't want more of that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so we hope you'll be inspired to get involved in doing therapy dog work if you think that your dog or horse or pig or goat could be a good therapy animal.
absolutely. They have a wisdom that we're still trying to tap into. So I'm glad you
That's
pointed
right.
that out.
Yeah.
Well, Jeannie, thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful information. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
people, if you have questions, reach out to her. She's a fantastic resource and she'll direct you.
Yeah. Well, bye for now. We'll see you next time.
Bye, Jeannie. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Human Animal Connection Show. Please visit our website, thehumananimalconnection.org. There you can sign up for our free email newsletter, book a consultation, or check out our blogs and resources. Our best-selling book, The Human Animal Connection, is available on Amazon, and your donation of any amount keeps our nonprofit organization providing life-changing services. You can reach Michael Overly, author of Let Your Dog Lead, Musings on How to Create an Exceptional Life, on his website at dogsandmen.com or email michael@dogsandmen.com.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.